Travis Kelce had 7 catches, which was good enough to push him ahead of Reggie Wayne to move into the top 10 in NFL history in receptions with 1,071. He's now number 10. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Monday. My name's Ernie Jennings, and we are looking at some big games that happened yesterday. Players that had amazing games, some games that were close, but a lot of blowouts as well. A lot of high scoring going on yesterday, and not by necessarily always the teams you would think. For example, the Houston Texans scoring 40 points plus. What we're going to do is I'm going to cover at least 5 games. I might have to cover the games that played on Sunday and Monday over 3 days just because of time, if I don't want to make this too long of a podcast, and to keep it simplified. But I want to cover all the stats, and I want to get into some of the stats in the game as well as all the top 10s that are taking place. And the reason it's taking a little longer is because you're getting teams now and players that have stats for their team on a season level, which obviously earlier in the year, you didn't have anybody hitting season marks because it takes the entire season generally to get to that point. But now that we're coming down to the end of the season, we've got players that are making it into the top 10, whether for their team or for the NFL. So just adds a little bit more time in covering some of those top 10s, whether it's career-wise or season levels. Plus, I want to get into the stats, like I said, and give you a little bit rounded out some of the stats in the game as we move forward. So with all that, we're going to get started and see how it goes. So the first game we're going to look at is a blowout. Chicago Bears beat the Cleveland Browns 31-3. Wasn't close at all. Stat-wise, anything. I mean, Chicago Bears had this game at 14-0 after the first quarter, and they could have called the game right there because it took the Browns till the third quarter to even get a field goal, and that's all they scored in the game. Now, as far as yards go, Chicago Bears had 361 total yards to 192 for Cleveland. Just wasn't this game. Thing went Chicago's way. Had the ball for almost 33 minutes to 27 for Cleveland. Just nothing good. And when you look at Sanders, whose game last week wasn't too bad, for somebody who's just getting going, but with an entire week of practice and everything against the Bears, he didn't look good at all. 18 completions on 35 attempts, 177 yards, only 5 yards per attempt, 3 interceptions, sacked 5 times, quarterback rating of 30.3. That's pretty bad. Now, Caleb Williams, on the other hand, 17 completions on 28 attempts, 1 fewer completion on 7 fewer attempts, but he had 242 yards, 8.6 yards per attempt, which is 3.5 yards more per attempt than Shedeur Sanders had. He also had 2 touchdowns, Williams did, and he had a quarterback rating of 112.5, so a really good game for him. Now, back to the Cleveland Browns. Rushing department, 16 carries, 50 yards, so just over 3 yards a carry. And that's only ballooned because Shedeur Sanders had 2 carries for 24 yards to lead the team in yards. Quinshon Judkins had 12 carries for 21 yards. And then you throw in the fact that Judkins also had 3 catches for minus 4 yards. Judkins ended up with a total of 17 yards in this game on 15 carries. 15 touches, I should say. Not good at all. They just had no offense. Just really bad. Leading receiver was their tight end, Harold Fannin, 7 catches, 48 yards. Other than that, Isaiah Bond had 2 catches for 89 yards. So that was good, but only 2 catches on 4 targets. Man, just not good. And everything went to Fannin. I mean, 7 catches, 14 targets. So almost half his targets, or a third. Yeah. Somewhere in that range. The vast majority of the targets, I'll put it that way, went to Fannin. Nobody else had more than 4 targets thrown his way. Now, for the Bears, as far as rushing goes, let's look at that. DeAndre Swift dominated here over Monange, which had been closer to a split, but Swift had 18 carries, 98 yards, 5.44 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, compared to Monange, who had 11 touches and 33 yards, so 3 yards a carry there. Really a big game by Swift. In the receiving department, it was just really one guy, Luther Burden, 6 catches, 84 yards on 7 targets. Most targeted guy, most receptions, most yards. But it was DJ Moore with 4 catches for 69 yards who had the 2 receiving touchdowns. So good game for him as well. Now on defense, this is the only shining spot for the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett had 1.5 sacks. He had a tackle for loss as well, but he had 1.5 sacks, which is exactly what he needed to break into the top 10 all time, whether official sacks department or the unofficial sacks department. On the unofficial sacks, which started since 1960, he made it to number 10. He's tied with Deacon Jones and Coy Bacon. Deacon Jones in 1967 had 21.5 sacks. Coy Bacon in 1976 for the Bengals had 21.5 sacks. Now, Deacon Jones did it for the Rams. Myles Garrett now has 21.5 sacks this year for the Browns, which puts him in a tie with Coy Bacon and Deacon Jones for 9th place all time. Next up, he's got several players, 5 of them, in fact, that have exactly 22 sacks. So he only needs a half a sack to move up into a tie for 5th on the unofficial sack list. Now, when you're looking at the official sacks, which started in 1982, and as I've said, the reason for the difference is this: from 1982, they started getting the sack totals from the games as they watch live. From 1960 to 82, they had to go back. They had experts and different people look at every football game, watched every game, looked at the official stats for those games, and accounted for all the sacks. So I feel like someday those should be counted as just part of the official list. I don't know why they have waited this long. When you look at team stats, like if you just look at the individual team, you'll see they're including sacks from however far back, back to 1960. So it doesn't seem right that they're holding back on this sack list. But the difference is that you have a different leader as far as overall sacks officially. But when it comes to the official sack list from 1982, with 1.5 sacks, now Myles Garrett has 21.5 sacks, which is good enough to put him in 6th all time in the NFL in sacks as far as the official list goes. So he needs a half a sack to catch 3 players who have 22. And that would put him into 3rd. And he only needs 1 sack to tie Michael Strahan and TJ Watt on the official list. And he will become he'll be tied for 1st place all time in the sack department. Needs 1.5 to set the record all for himself. So we'll see. I mean, I don't see how he's not going to do it. He's got 3 games to go. He needs a couple of sacks in 3 games. Obviously, he's doing way better than that. So he's definitely got a chance to set the record in that department. All right. As far as in the Chicago Bears in the passing department, like I said, Caleb Williams had 242 yards in this game, which was good enough to move him up into the top 10. He came into the season for the Chicago Bears at the 15th spot. Now with 242 yards, he jumps into 10th, knocking Mitchell Trubisky out of that 10th spot. So Caleb Williams now has 3,150 yards this season. Last year, in his first year, he had over 3,500. So he's on a pace to maybe catch that number. He's not going to – everybody was hoping he'd make it to 4,000 yards. He won't do that. I mean, there's 3 games to go. He needs, almost 900 yards. Not that it's impossible, but it's highly doubtful that he gets that far up the list. And we'll see where he ends up. But definitely he'll end up in the top 5 somewhere, most likely. He's had a much better season. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, in passing touchdowns for the Chicago Bears, top 10s this season, in a season number. With 2 more touchdown passes, he went from 15th for the Chicago Bears into a tie for 10th again with Billy Wade, who did it in 1961 when he threw 22 touchdown passes. Now, Caleb Williams also has 22 touchdown passes, which is the best he's done compared to last year. Now, next up is Rex Grossman. Wow. Jay Cutler and Johnny Lujak, who did it in 1949. So they all have 23. He definitely has a chance here. He needs 7 touchdown passes to tie Eric Kramer for the most passing touchdowns in Chicago Bear history. No one's ever thrown 30. That's amazing. There's no one throwing 30. Now he needs 8 more in 3 games. That's pushing it. That's almost 3 a game. I don't think he's going to get there. He might make it up to 5th spot. That's probably maybe 6th, maybe 4th. I mean, we'll see. But much better season. And I say that because, and I'm not going to put a chart up because he's not on there, but last year, Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times, which puts him in the top 10 in the NFL all time for most sacks in a single season. This year, with new coaching, he's been sacked 23 times. I mean, almost a third, just under a third fewer sacks this season. It's made an incredible difference for their team and for him as a quarterback. Now, in passing yards for the Chicago Bears, he passed Justin Fields to move into 10th all-time in that category. This is on a career level now. So he's got in top 10 on the season level. He's top 10 career all-time now, dropping Justin Fields out of this list. Caleb Williams now has, in his career, 6,691 passing yards for him. Now he needs a little over 400 yards to catch Bob Avellini, who played in the 70s and 80s, who has over 7,100 yards. And that'll definitely be as far as he gets, because after that, we're talking about players with over 9,000 yards. He won't get that this season. Caleb Williams has had a really good second year. And now Drake Mays had a much better second year, but still pretty good year for Caleb Williams compared to last year. All right, let's move on to our next game. The next game we're going to look at is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This game was another game that I would have not predicted this score at all. The Ravens win this game 24-0. The Ravens don't have that good of an offense, and Bengals had Burrow and Chase. No one could predict that they would score 0 points, but that's the case. So the Baltimore Ravens are now 7-7. This is a race between them and Pittsburgh to win that division. But this game, was over after the halftime. It was 14-0, and Ravens just added another 10 points to, do some more damage. In the game, it was pretty close stat-wise. Baltimore Ravens, 317 total yards, 298 for Cincinnati in this game. Close that way. Now, in Cincinnati, 0 points. They had the ball for over 39 minutes to less than 21 for Baltimore, and yet they could not score when they had the ball almost twice as long as the Ravens did, and they could not score. That's terrible. Just terrible. Let's look at the numbers here. Lamar Jackson, wow. only threw the ball 12 times, had 8 completions for 150 yards. Yards per attempt is 12 and a half. That's huge. That's a huge number. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, had a quarterback rating of 114.6. Now, Joe Burrow, 25 completions on 39 attempts, a lot of attempts, 225 yards, so less than 6 yards an attempt. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, obviously. Quarterback rating of 58.2. Now, in this game, Derrick Henry, another good game for him. 11 carries, 100 yards, 9 yards a carry. Really good. And, probably he could have had more carries, but this game was over, and there's no point in having him out on the field in the fourth quarter. Keaton Mitchell came in, had 8 carries for 66 yards. That's 8.25 yards per carry. And Lamar Jackson had 2 carries for 26 yards. So 24 carries, 189 yards, almost 8 yards a carry as a total there. No rushing touchdowns, though. For the Bengals, Chase Brown, 13 carries for 53 yards. So that's over 4 yards a carry. And Perrine had 14 carries, so 1 more carry, but only 42 yards, 3 yards a carry there. So, man, it's a weird game. Zay Flowers, 3 catches, 68 yards. 1 was a touchdown on a 28-yard pass play. He was the leading receiver with 3 catches on 5 targets. No one else had more than 2 catches. Wow, just a crazy game. Rashid Ali had 2 catches, 32 yards, and he had 1 touchdown as well. Those are the 2 receiving touchdowns. Now for the Cincinnati Bengals, again, these numbers and the scores just don't add up exactly. But Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 132 yards. You would think somewhere in there they could have squeezed out at least a field goal, something, but they didn't. So 10 for 132 yards. So that's over 13 yards a catch. Chase Brown, 7 catches, 37 yards as the second leading receiver. But Jamar Chase had 10 catches on 16 targets to by far be the leading receiver there. That's a look at some of the numbers in this game. Now, really, there's only a couple of overall numbers. As far as receiving goes, Zay Flowers needed 11 yards. Well, he got 68 yards, so he's now moved into 7th place all-time, passing Quadre Ismail, who played for a few years right around the turn of the century. Zay Flowers now has 2,876 yards to move into 7th place all-time, the Baltimore Ravens in receiving yards. Next up for him is Ray Rice, who played from 2008 to 2013. He'll need a little bit there. He's got a little over 3,000, so he'll need a decent game of, like, say, 158 yards to do that. Probably take him at least 2 more games, maybe the rest of the season. Now, Mark Andrews only had 18 yards, but he's just adding to his total. He's the number 1 receiver in Baltimore Ravens history with now 5,889 yards. That's one of the lowest totals, by the way, for a leading receiver on a team. Now, the bright spot in this game was Chase Brown, had 10 catches. For the season now for the Cincinnati Bengals, he came in at 12th with 91. Now with 10 more, jumps him all the way to 3rd all-time for the Cincinnati Bengals in receptions with 101. Next up is TJ Houshmandzadeh with 112. So probably take him 2 games to do that. I mean, he could do it in 1, but probably take him 2. Jamar Chase has the record for the Cincinnati Bengals in a single season with 127 receptions, which he did last year. He would need to have 9 catches a game, which is possible, to set the record. And, he got booted out of a game or got suspended for a game. He probably easily breaks this record if he didn't miss that game. But 101 receptions for Jamar Chase now, 3rd all-time Cincinnati Bengals in receptions. All right, next game up is the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a game that obviously the Chiefs needed to win if they had any hopes. Their hopes were in the teens anyway, 18% chance, and they lost the game. And they had the game, in the after the halftime. It was 13-10 Kansas City, but they just could not hang on to the lead. And it was only field goals in the end. It was 16-13. No one scored in the fourth quarter, but the Chargers win this now to go to 10-4. Kansas City, now at 6-8, is eliminated from the playoffs, which is just as well because sadly Mahomes tore his ACL. He's out anyway for the year, and it's going to take him all the way to next year to heal. But he'd been playing kind of injured anyway due to the playoffs, I'm sure. So this was a major blow for them. Now in this game, it was close all the way around. Chargers 295 total net yards. Kansas City 239. So rough there. Kansas City only had 49 net yards rushing. Wow. Now looking at the numbers overall, backing up real quick here. Wow. The Chargers had the ball for almost 35 minutes to 25 minutes for Kansas City. So that's a big difference there. And Kansas City, again, they just got penalized 9 times for 64 yards. They can't have that when you're trying to stay in a game. Now in this game, Justin Herbert, 19 completions on 29 attempts for 210 yards, a little over 7 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and for a quarterback rating of 84. Patrick Mahomes, 16 completions on 28 attempts, 189 yards, just under 7 yards an attempt, no touchdown passes, 1 interception, sacked 5 times, quarterback rating of 62.9. And Gardner Minshew came in 3 completions on 5 attempts, 22 yards, but he threw an interception at the end of the game that sealed the win for the Chargers. For the Chargers, Omarion Hampton, 15 carries, 61 yards, just over 4 yards a carry. And Kamani Vidal, 12 carries for 33 yards, 2.75 yards a carry for him. For Kansas City, now this is interesting that Isaiah Pacheco led the team with 11 carries for 21 yards, not even 2 yards a carry. Patrick Mahomes had 2 carries for 15 yards, and 1 was a touchdown. So he had their lone touchdown rushing. Actually, it was their lone touchdown in this game. The rest of everything was field goals. But not a good game at all, really, for either team as far as the rushing department goes. I mean, Kareem Hunt had 6 carries for 12 yards, so that's only 2 yards a carry. In the receiving department, again, nothing big. Keenan Allen led the team, 5 catches for 36 yards. Oronde Gadsden, 4 catches, 61 yards. Those are your top 2 receivers. And this is one of those things when you're in fantasy football you hate because no one had this player on his team. But Keandre Lambert-Smith had 1 catch for 16 yards and a touchdown. So he had the lone touchdown for this team. Not one of the star players. Now for Kansas City, Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 70 yards. Not bad. Rashee Rice, 7 catches for 51 yards. Those are your top 2 receivers by far. No one else had more than 2 catches in this game. So it was one of those 2 players, if anybody was going to catch a pass, just about. That's a look at those 2 teams. Nobody stood out. It was a huge game, a tough game, obviously, in more ways than one for Kansas City. But Los Angeles Chargers stay in the hunt. Now in this game, Justin Herbert was sacked 4 times, which now ties him with Phillip Rivers, who came back from the dead, or I shouldn't say that, from retirement to play yesterday after 5 years of retirement. But for the Los Angeles Chargers, Phillip Rivers was first all-time in quarterback sacks with 49. He did that in 2012. Well, Justin Herbert tied him. They both now have 49 quarterbacks sacks. And you figure Justin Herbert with 3 games to go is going to be sacked at least one more time. So he'll bump Phillip Rivers down to number 2 in this category. Also in this game, and a negative, just throwing, more fire on the wood, or wood on the fire here for Patrick Mahomes. But with this interception, it ties him with Trent Green with 85 interceptions in his career for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're now both tied for third with 85 quarterback interceptions. And then Travis Kelce, on a good note for them, Travis Kelce had 7 catches, which was good enough to push him ahead of Reggie Wayne to move into the top 10 in NFL history in receptions with 1,071. He's now number 10. This is the first player in about 10 years to break into the top 10. And as I've been talking about in this category, you've got 4 wide receivers who were able to hit the 1,000 reception mark this year. Now, Travis Kelce did it last year, but Keenan Allen, Davante Adams, and DeAndre Hopkins all have more than 1,000 receptions, with Travis Kelce leading this group of players. But Travis Kelce is the first one to be able to break into the top 10 in the recent, like I said, in the last 10 years. So good for him. Next up for him is Anquan Boldin, who has 1,076. So he needs 5 receptions to catch him. Very possible that he moves up this list a little bit farther. Now, Keenan Allen, he might catch Reggie Wayne. He's got 1,042. He's going to need some pretty good games in the next 3 games to do it. He needs 34 receptions. I doubt it, honestly. Actually, it would be next year for him. They both came in the league in the same year, but as did DeAndre Hopkins, all came in 2013. Davante Adams, who's injured, may not play next week, or actually this Thursday, so he probably won't play. He's also there, but he started the year after those 3 players. Oh, Travis Kelce, 1,071 receptions to now be 10th all-time in NFL history in receptions. All right, now moving on to our next game, Buffalo Bills. Let me see here. We've done, wow, we're moving a little slow, so we will only do about 5 games. But the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Now, this was a big game, huge game. And I don't know what it is, but Buffalo did it again. They were being dominated in this game. At halftime, it was 24-7, New England over Buffalo. And Buffalo came storming back with 28 points in the second half to win it 35-31. Just amazing. I mean, I saw that. I could see that happening with the last week when Buffalo Bills did it against Cincinnati Bengals, but it was the Cincinnati Bengals. So really a big win for Buffalo when they can do that against the New England Patriots, who were tied, with the best record in the NFL. So now the Buffalo Bills 10-4, New England Patriots 11-3. Still a lead for the Patriots, and they do have I think they have an easier schedule. So they still have a good chance to win their division. And obviously both these teams are primed to make the playoffs, regardless of whether it's a wild card or winning the division. Now in this game, it was a close game, as the stats show. I mean, net yards, Buffalo 349, New England Patriots 385. So very close there. Time of possession, though, was Buffalo over 35 minutes to less than 25 for the New England Patriots. So that was a big difference in this game. Now, New England was penalized 7 times for 65 yards. Buffalo only twice for 15. Played a little difference there. And kickoff returns, Buffalo 4 kickoff returns for 164 yards. That's big as well. And Buffalo had an interception. So a lot of those things all worked in the favor of Buffalo coming back and winning this game. Now, looking at the stats, Josh Allen, 19 completions on 28 attempts, only 193 yards, less than 7 yards per attempt, but 3 touchdowns. Only sacked twice, had a quarterback rating of 123.1. On the other hand, Drake May, 14 completions on 23 attempts, 155 yards, 6.7 yards an attempt, but 1 interception. That was a bad interception. Wrong time for that. Quarterback rating of 62.8. Now in this game, James Cook, another good game, 22 carries, 107 yards, 4.86 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 11 carries. That's a lot of carries, 48 yards for him, 4.36 yards per carry. They rushed the ball 37 times for 168 yards, so over 4.5 yards a carry. Now for New England, Cincinnati Henderson, 14 carries, 148 yards, huge game, over 10.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, had 2 touchdown runs over 50 yards. Second time in history of NFL that a player has had 2 games in the same season where he's had 2 50-plus yard rushing touchdowns. I know that's a crazy stat, but I heard it and it was impressive. Raymond Stevenson had a good game, 6 carries for 50 yards. See, this is a game you should not lose. And how they lost, is amazing. But New England Patriots, 25 rushing attempts for 246 yards, almost 10 yards a rush, 4 rushing touchdowns, and they lost the game. You should not be losing a game when you have 4 rushing touchdowns and you dominated in the amount of in the yardage this way. It's crazy. Now, receiving department, nobody really stood out for Buffalo. I mean, wow, 2, 4, 6, 8 receivers in this game caught a ball. Khalil Shakir had 5 catches, 65 yards. This is, again, why I never pick Buffalo Bill as my receiver on a fantasy team, because you don't know who's going to do it. Usually, Dalton Kincaid, 3 catches, 34 yards. No touchdowns, though. Dawson Knox, 3 catches, 37 yards, 2 touchdowns receiving. And James Cook coming out of the backfield, 2 receptions, 4 yards, but another touchdown for him. So he had 3 touchdowns total and a total of 111 yards. Not too many yards receiving, but still a big game. And they pulled this game out. Now for New England, again, no one stood out here either. They don't have anybody that's amazing receiver. Mac Hollins, 4 catches, 41 yards in this game. No one had a touchdown. Travion Henderson, 2 catches, 13 yards. So you tack that on with all his 148 yards. So he had 161 yards of offense in this game. Pretty good game for him. Pretty good game for the running backs in general. Now, looking at the overall stats, for the Buffalo Bills in passing touchdowns in a season, Josh Allen came in at 20th, had 2 passing touchdowns now to move him into a tie with Drew Bledsoe for 10th all-time Buffalo Bills in passing touchdowns with 24. Next up is Jim Kelly and Joe Ferguson, who both had 25. Josh Allen holds the record with 37. He won't get that far. In fact, Josh Allen holds the top 3 spots and 5 of the top 6. So he's doing something like you see a lot of quarterbacks who've been on the same team that are really good, say Tom Brady or something, where they just have all the top 10 spots or most of them. And he's about to do that again. Put his name up there for the 6th time. Be in the top 10. He'll be up there 6 times. Now, James Cook, in the rushing touchdown department, he needed only 1 touchdown to pass Ray Carlton, who in the 60s had 29 rushing touchdowns. Well, James Cook had 2 of them. So he moves into a tie for 5th with Fred Jackson with 30 rushing touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills in their careers. Josh Allen holds the record with 75. Let me make sure on that. Yeah, 75. He didn't have any today or yesterday. So he's got a huge lead over anybody else as the quarterback. Now, in the category of all touchdowns, well, James Cook had 3 total there, and he was tied with Joe Cribbs, who played in the 80s, with 36 for 10th spot. Well, with 3 more, he jumps all the way up into a tie for 7th with Albert Dubunian, who played in the 60s, with 39 total touchdowns, receiving or rushing. Good for him. That was a big jump for him right there. Next up is Lee Evans with 43. Now in the negative department, Drake May was in 10th spot, tied for 9th actually with Tom Brady in a single season as far as being sacked with 40. He had 3 more though, moves up into a tie with 7th with Tony Eason, who in 1986 was sacked 43 times. So they've both been sacked 43 times in their careers. Next up is Drew Bledsoe and Steve Grogan, who both were sacked 45 times. Not a number you want to be associated with, but that's the way it goes. All right, let's get one more game in here, and we'll call it a day. And this was a game with no real consequences as far as standings go. It's Washington Commanders versus the New York Giants. And in this game, it was a back and forth a little bit. Actually, Commanders were leading, and the Giants tried to make a comeback, and it ended up being 29-21. Washington Commanders win this game. They're now 4-10. New York Giants are 2-12, which is just as well for the Giants because they need a draft pick. Not a quarterback, though. I think they're probably set there, but otherwise they do need a high draft pick. Now in this game, close game stat-wise, the Giants actually had more yardage, 384 to 340 for Washington. Time of possession was pretty close. Washington almost 31 minutes. New York Giants just over 29. Pretty close there. Really nothing big standing out here. It was just kind of a game between two teams that just aren't that good. Marcus Mariota, 10 completions, 19 attempts for 211 yards. Over 11 yards per attempt, which is really good. 1 touchdown, had a quarterback rating of 109.8, so not bad there. Jason Dart, just okay, 20 completions on 36 attempts for 246 yards, just under 7 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, only sacked once, had a quarterback rating of 83.8. I really do like him as a quarterback, and when he gets some players back next year, man, it could be a pretty decent team. Could see a big turnaround with that team. For the Commanders, Ja'Cory Croskett Merritt, 18 carries, 96 yards, 5.33 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. So pretty good there. Marcus Mariota, 10 carries for 43 yards. So that's 4.3. And then Jeremy McNichols, not good at all. 9 carries for 6 yards. So less than a yard a carry there. Now for the Giants, Tyrone Tracy outcarried Devon Singletary by 3 times. Tracy had 15 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. Average 4.67 yards a carry. Devon Singletary, 5 carries for only 13 yards. So 2.6 yards a carry for him. And Jackson Dart, 9 carries for 63 yards. Wow, 7 yards a carry. Now receiving, Terry McLaurin, wow, he had that touchdown. He just shook off the defender and ran it in for the rest of the way for the touchdown. It was a 51-yard touchdown pass. 3 catches, only 3 catches, though, for 69 yards and that 1 touchdown. Deebo Samuels had 3 catches for 43 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson again, 5 catches for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. He's going to be good. He's not a number 1, but he's been playing that way. Has to take that role on. But next year he won't have to do that anymore. Darius Slayton, 4 catches, 53 yards. Tyrone Tracy, 3 catches for 27 yards and a touchdown. So Tracy had a pretty good game. 70 yards rushing, and then another 27. So he had 97 yards on a total of 18 touches. So pretty good for him. All right. Now, in this game, nothing as far as stats except for the fact that Von Miller just needed one tackle for loss to move up to a tie with Calais Campbell all time in NFL history in tackles for loss with 190 with 176. I'm sorry, tied Aaron Donald actually 176. Calais Campbell's up with 195. But he did move into fourth place tie with Aaron Donald with 176 tackles for loss. So really, he's had a good career. He's been around since 2011. Long time. Not as long as Calais Campbell's been around since 2008, but still, it's been a long time. So that's the only stat in this game. So with that game, we will call it a wrap for this episode. You see how long it's taken just to do 5 games. So I will do another podcast and we'll do another 5 games tomorrow. Some big games there as well. They're important one way or the other. All right. So I appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe. You can find this podcast on Just the Stats NFL. You can find it on YouTube at that address, Just the Stats NFL. So go to YouTube and please like, subscribe, comment there if you like. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Obviously, on YouTube, I'm going to put up the charts that will show the stats from these different games, not the stats of the individual games, but the scores and the top 10 players in whatever category they happen to be in. All right. So until tomorrow, that is a wrap for NFL Top 10s for Monday. I am out.